Now think about this for a moment. By the 1970s, the world was already moving away from tiny denomination coins. Inflation was rising. Production costs were climbing. Small coins were becoming impractical. Yet in 1974, South Africa quietly produced a half-cent coin. But here's the twist. It was never released for everyday circulation. It was struck only for official mint sets. That decision alone changed its destiny forever. This coin comes from the era of the South African rand decimal system, introduced in 1961 when South Africa moved away from pounds, shillings, and pence. The half-cent became one of the smallest denominations in that system. By 1974, however, the denomination was already fading into irrelevance in daily commerce. That's why the 1974 half-cent stands out. It represents the end of practicality and the beginning of collectability. The coin itself carries the coat of arms of South Africa used during that period. Strong lines, clean design, a symbol of state authority and national identity. On the reverse, you'll see the denomination, half cent, and the year 1974 clearly struck. Most examples were minted in bronze, giving them that warm reddish-brown tone that seasoned collectors appreciate. Over time, many have developed a rich patina, the kind that serious numismatists actually prefer because it proves originality. But here is where it gets interesting for you, especially if you've been collecting for decades or you inherited coins from a parent or grandparent. Because this coin was only issued in mint sets, the total number produced was dramatically lower than circulation coins. And mint sets are often broken apart over time. People remove coins. Sets get damaged. Packaging deteriorates. That means surviving complete examples, and especially high-grade single coins, become scarcer every single year. That let's talk about condition, because condition is king. Coins that remain sealed in original mint packaging usually preserve their surfaces. But even in mint sets, bronze coins can tone, spot, or discolor depending on storage conditions. A flawless example with sharp details, original luster, and no environmental damage can command significantly higher interest than an average piece. For collectors in their late 50s and 60s, you already understand this. You know the difference between a coin that's simply old and a coin that's investment grade. Another important factor is historical context. 1974 was a complicated time in South Africa's political and economic landscape. Coins from that era carry more than metal value. They carry the story of a nation during a period of global change. Many international collectors look for coins that represent specific historical windows. The 1974 half-cent fits into that category. It is a denomination that was quietly disappearing, minted during a significant decade, and preserved in limited numbers. Now imagine this scenario. A young collector today might overlook a half-cent. It sounds small, insignificant. But seasoned collectors know that the smallest denominations often become sleeper hits. Why? Because they were the first to be discontinued. They were the least saved. And when produced only in mint sets, their population becomes even tighter. Let's also consider psychology in the market. Rarity drives curiosity. Curiosity drives demand. Demand drives value. When collectors discover that a coin was never intended for circulation, and only available through official sets, it changes perception instantly. It becomes exclusive. And exclusivity is powerful in the collectibles world. If you have one of these coins, the first thing you should check is whether it came from an intact 1974 South African mint set. Original packaging increases desirability. Next, examine the surfaces under good lighting. Look for scratches, spots, or dullness. A clean, well-preserved piece could be worth far more than you expect. Some collectors even consider professional grading for high-quality examples, especially if they believe the coin could score at the top of the scale. Another angle to consider is long-term demographic demand. Many collectors in the 55 to 65 age group grew up during the 1960s and 1970s. That emotional connection matters. Coins from your formative years tend to hold stronger sentimental and market value as that generation continues to collect and invest. We are seeing this pattern across multiple countries. Nostalgia meets scarcity, and that combination can be explosive. Now let's address supply. Unlike mass circulation coins that might have millions or tens of millions struck, mint set-only coins have much tighter production figures. Over the past 5 decades, attrition has reduced the available pool. Some sets were lost, some were melted, some were simply forgotten in drawers and exposed to humidity. Every year, the number of premium quality examples quietly shrinks, and when supply shrinks while awareness grows, prices react. If you are holding one of these coins, you're not just holding a tiny piece of bronze. You're holding a coin that marked the twilight of fractional currency in South Africa. You're holding a coin that most people have never seen outside of collector circles. You're holding a coin that represents a shift in monetary history. For those of you who are serious about legacy investing, and I know many of you are, coins like this are not about quick flips. They are about strategic positioning. Limited issue. Mint only. Historical context. Aging collector base with purchasing power. That's a formula that demands attention. And here's the number you've been waiting for. High-grade examples of the 1974 South Africa half center for mint sets have reached values as high as $52,000 in the collector market under the right conditions. That's right. A coin that once represented half of a cent, a fraction of a fraction, can command $52,000 today when preserved in exceptional condition and recognized for its rarity. So before you dismiss small denominations, before you overlook that modest bronze coin tucked inside an old mint set, take a closer look. Because sometimes the smallest coins carry the biggest surprises. Subscribe now and stay with me, because today I'm about to take you on a journey that reaches far beyond the ordinary world of coins. This is a story for men who have lived through changing times, who've held real money in their hands, who know the weight of copper, the worth of hard work, and the meaning of value that grows with age. If you're between 55 and 65, you've seen enough of life to recognize that some things get better with time, and some treasures were never meant to be obvious. Today's coin is one of those rare, silent treasures. The South African half cent from 1972, a piece officially struck only for mint sets, yet carrying a legacy that reaches far beyond its tiny size. Imagine a coin so small that most people would overlook it without a second thought. Just a half cent, barely anything in your pocket. But for collectors, historians, and men who can appreciate fine details, this tiny coin carries a giant story. Picture the early 70s, a world shifting politically, socially, and economically. South Africa was changing in ways the world was watching closely. Amid that era, the mint quietly produced a limited run of half cents, coins not meant for everyday hands, coins reserved for collectors and presentations, coins that would one day become a whisper from the past. Now think about the craftsmanship. That deep bronze color, the soft shine catching the light in a way only untouched mint set coins can. The clean, sharp lines of Jan van Riebeek's profile on the obverse. The emblematic South African coat of arms on the reverse. No scratches, no wear, no signs of pocket circulation. Just a coin preserved exactly as the mint intended. To the untrained eye, it might look simple, but to someone who values precision, to a man who understands how life's details shape its bigger picture, this coin stands like a relic of another era. Quiet, unmistakably authentic, and impossible to reproduce. What makes the 1972 half cent especially intriguing is its exclusivity. Everyday coins pass through thousands of hands, carrying stories of markets, shops, the pockets of workers, the counters of cafes. But these half cents never had that life. They were not meant to be used. They were sealed away in sets, untouched, uncirculated, waiting for people with enough patience and enough eye for value to appreciate what they were. Scarcity is often what drives importance, but it is intentional scarcity that creates mystery. And this coin's scarcity was no accident. For men who have collected for decades, who have watched the hobby evolve, who know the thrill of spotting a rarity at a market or auction, the half-cent 1972 carries that particular sense of discovery. It's the kind of piece you don't stumble across on a table of loose coins. It's the kind of piece you hear about in collector circles, discussed quietly among those who know what they're talking about, admired by those who still respect old-world craftsmanship and minting traditions. Now imagine holding it. That small weight resting between your fingers. The feel of aged bronze, not worn, but matured. A coin like this does something special. It connects you to a particular moment in history. It makes you part of a chain of collectors, custodians, men who take pride in securing something rare not for display alone, but for legacy. You aren't just holding metal, you're holding time. You're holding intention. You're holding the result of skilled hands, old minting techniques, and decisions made more than half a century ago. This is the kind of piece that speaks best to an older generation of men. Men who understand the difference between disposable modern goods and the enduring presence of something built to last. Men who remember a world before everything was digital and instant. Men who appreciate that value is not always visible, and sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest worth. There's a special satisfaction in owning a coin like this. Not because you plan to sell it tomorrow or next year, but because you know it occupies a place in history that no newer coin ever can. It reminds you of what collecting used to be, an art, a hunt, a conversation between past and present. When you place this coin in a capsule or a tray, when you close the lid and tuck it safely away, you know you're protecting something that deserves to be preserved for generations. But make no mistake, even though this coin is small, and even though it was mint only for mint sets, its rarity and its story have elevated it to a level most people would never expect. Collectors today understand that unique pieces from limited issues can achieve extraordinary value in the right hands, at the right moment, and with the right demand. And when demand meets rarity, true rarity, not manufactured hype, astonishing things happen. That brings us to the part you've waited for. A coin like the South African half-cent from 1972, mint set only, preserved in exceptional condition, can command a value that shocks even seasoned collectors. It's the kind of number you don't associate with something so small. It's the kind of value that makes people realize how powerful time can be, how dramatically scarcity can transform worth. Before we start, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what you're about to see could completely change the way you look at coins, and maybe even your collection. You won't want to miss this. Imagine holding a coin that seems small, almost insignificant at first glance, yet carries a story that spans decades, a story so rare it could be worth more than your house. Today, we're talking about the South African half-cent from 1970. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Half a cent? That doesn't sound like much. But stay with me, because this tiny coin is one of the most remarkable pieces of numismatic history you could ever hope to find. The year 1970 was a unique moment in South Africa. The country's economy, society, and culture were all reflected in the coins circulating at the time. The half-cent might seem simple, but every detail tells a story. From the minting process to the design choices, this coin represents more than currency. It's a window into the past. Think about it. This coin has survived over 50 years, witnessed history, and now sits quietly in collectors' hands, waiting for the right person to recognize its true worth. Visually, the half-cent is subtle yet striking. On one side, you'll see classic South African motifs, carefully engraved to reflect the nation's identity at that time. On the other, the denomination is displayed with understated elegance, making it clear this coin was meant for everyday use, but with a touch of craftsmanship. For collectors, the condition of the coin, its luster, edges, and even the smallest marks, can completely transform its value. A coin in pristine condition isn't just metal. It's a story frozen in time, a treasure preserved through decades. Collectors are drawn to this coin for several reasons. First, rarity. The half-cent wasn't produced in huge quantities, and many that were minted didn't survive the years in good condition. Second, historical significance. This coin represents a time when every minting decision reflected the nation's priorities and challenges. Third, it's a conversation starter. Imagine placing a half cent from 1970 on a table and telling the story behind it. People might see it as small change, but you and a few collectors know it's a window into the past. Finding one of these coins today is no simple task. They often remain hidden in old collections, tucked away in boxes, or forgotten in drawers. For serious collectors, discovering a half cent in excellent condition is the thrill of a lifetime. Every detail matters: the shine of the metal, the clarity of the engravings. Even the smallest imperfections can tell you whether you're holding a common piece or a near-perfect gem. That sense of discovery, of uncovering a piece of history, is what makes numismatics so compelling, especially for those of us who've spent decades in the hobby. Many of us have personal connections to coins like this. Perhaps it reminds you of your youth, when a coin was more than just money. It was something to save, something to admire, a piece of your own growing collection. The 1970 half cent evokes nostalgia and curiosity. It's a tangible reminder that history can fit in the palm of your hand, that small things can carry enormous meaning, and that a simple coin can spark memories of a time long gone. That let's not overlook the craftsmanship. Modern coins are often mass-produced and forgettable, but coins from this era were designed with care. Every curve, every engraving, every minted edge required skill and attention. Holding a 1970 half cent, you can almost feel the hands that created it. That human element, the artistry behind a simple coin, is part of why collectors value it so highly. It's not just currency, it's an artifact. For those of you who have been collecting for years, this coin is the ultimate example of why we love this hobby. It's not about the money alone. It's about pride, passion, and the thrill of holding a piece of history that few others will ever own. There's a satisfaction in knowing you possess something rare, something that has survived decades in excellent condition, and that tells a story no one else can replicate. Imagine this scenario. A collector uncovers a box of old coins at an estate sale. Most are ordinary, but tucked inside is a 1970 half cent from South Africa. At first glance, it might look like any other small coin, but upon closer inspection, its rarity becomes clear. The coin is authenticated, its condition evaluated, and suddenly, what seemed ordinary transforms into something extraordinary. This is the kind of discovery that keeps collectors searching year after year, because it proves that treasures can still be found when you least expect them. And now, the part you've been waiting for, the value. While most people would see this coin and think it's worth just a few cents, the reality is astonishing. A pristine 1970 South African half center, one that has survived decades in near-perfect condition, can reach up to $2.5 million. Yes, $2.5 million. A coin so small, so unassuming, yet capable of commanding a sum that could change someone's life. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most valuable things aren't the ones that shout the loudest. They're the ones that quietly wait for the right person to recognize their worth. So, the next time you come across an old coin, don't dismiss it. Take a closer look. That coin in your drawer, in your collection, or passed down from a relative could be more than just metal. It could be a key to history, a collector's dream, and in some cases, a life-changing treasure. The 1970 South African half center isn't just a coin. It's proof that extraordinary value often comes in the smallest packages. If this story fascinated you, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. There are countless hidden treasures out there, stories of coins, history, and discoveries that will amaze you, and I'll be bringing them to you. Keep exploring, keep collecting, and always remember that sometimes the smallest things can hold the greatest value. In a world where rare coins often tell hidden stories, the 1978 South Africa half-cent coin carries more than its small size suggests. It's a piece of history, art, and numismatic intrigue wrapped into one bronze disc. For collectors who understand the nuance behind mintages, condition, and cultural context, this coin becomes a treasure rather than just a relic. Let's begin by setting the stage. In 1978, South Africa was still minting a variety of small denomination bronze coins as part of its decimal coinage series. The half cent, written 1/2 C, was produced in bronze, with a weight of approximately 2.00 grams and a diameter near 16.21 millimeters. Its thickness is about 1.47 millimeters, giving it a solid, compact presence in hand. These specifications are consistent with the same series of half-cent coins issued in nearby years. Muntstuk plus 2 Muntstuk plus 2 on the obverse, front, of the coin, you will find the inscription South Africa and Suid-Afrika, reflecting the bilingual nature of the country at the time. Below is the Latin motto Ex Unitate Vires, meaning from unity, strength. The year 1978 appears alongside the initials TS, standing for Tommy Sassine, the coin's designer. On the reverse, back, the design is simple but elegant. 1/2, followed again by TS, under light. You might even discern the fine artistry in the stamping of those initials. The edge is reeded or coarsely milled. Last dodo plus 2 Muntstuk plus 2, but what truly gives this coin its mystique is its rarity and the conditions under which it existed. In that year, the mintage figure for the 1/2 cent coin is often listed as only around 37,000 pieces. Muntstuk plus 2 last dodo plus 2 many of those coins entered circulation and endured the wear and tear of daily life, being handled, pocketed, jostled, cleaned, scraped. Over decades, most were lost, melted down, or reduced to circulated grades with diminished detail. Given that, an uncirculated or proof condition 1978 half cent is extraordinarily rare. Collectors prize coins that retain their original luster, sharp details, crisp edges, and minimal toning or surface marks. A coin in such pristine condition is something akin to a natural diamond. It rarely occurs and is intensely prized when found. From a historical perspective, the coin is a bridge between eras. South Africa's coinage underwent multiple transitions during the mid to late 20th century, responding to political, economic, and societal change. The inclusion of both English and Afrikaans on the coins acknowledges the bilingual tension in the country's identity at that time. The motto, the design choices, and the simplicity of the coin reflect an era when small denominations still held everyday utility and symbolic meaning. Those elements make it more than metal. It's a cultural artifact. Imagine showing the coin to your audience under magnification. You draw their attention to the fine lines around 1/2 and the initials TS. You let them see the crispness of the font, the subtle wear or absence thereof. You might compare it to a circulated coin, pointing out how much detail is lost when coins circulate. That visual contrast adds emotional weight. The rarity becomes tangible, not just theoretical. You can also discuss how coin collectors judge value. It's not just rarity. Condition, grade, provenance, history of ownership or origin, and market interest all play roles. Even tiny deviations, slight toning, micro scratches, die cracks, can dramatically affect value. And for a coin this small and old, potential for damage is high. So specimens that survive in mint state are treasured. To further engage your viewers, you might recount anecdotes. Perhaps a collector who searched for years, or a coin show where two collectors vied for a gem-proof example. Or you might explain how sometimes coins are rediscovered in family coin jars, estate sales, or old collections, and even a minor reappearance can cause flutters in the collector community. You could also briefly compare this 1/2 cent with other South African coins of that time. For instance, the 2-cent coin from 1978 depicts a black wildebeest and was struck in larger quantities. Muntstuk or mention how the cent coin series was essentially discontinued for general circulation by the 1970s and later struck only in proof sets. Wikipedia +1 These comparisons highlight how unusual it is for a half cent to survive well. In preparing such a video, your narration tone can shift from descriptive to suspenseful. You begin with a modest appearance. At first glance, it's just a small bronze disc. Then you build intrigue. But in top condition, this coin can command thousands of dollars. a testament to the endurance of rare art and history. By the time you reveal the price, the viewer is primed to understand and feel respect. You should guide the viewer visually. Include high-resolution close-ups, light from different angles so the relief shows shadows, macro shots of the lettering, and side views to show thickness and edge milling. Overlaying text might highlight 37,000 minted or mint state equals extremely rare. Use measured pacing so viewers can absorb each feature before moving on. You may also mention that despite web listings showing proof 1978 1/2 cent coins for modest amounts, for example, one listing at about 40.00 in local currency, Bob's Hop, Feuillet, those are likely lower grade or uncertified pieces. They don't reflect the kind of flawless specimen that captures collector attention at the highest tier. As you conclude, you can reflect on what value means for a collector. It's not just price per ounce or metal content. The bronze composition is modest, but the story, the condition, the scarcity, and the emotional resonance of owning something few others can. Then, quietly drop the final reveal, $7,530.